I came across this article from I think it was from the Daily did the Daily Mail here. We can see that. It says Bill Gates withering assessment on wildly popular investment. People with high IQs have fooled themselves. He said Bill Gates has delivered a withering assessment on cryptocurrency, saying that it is useless. There are people with high IQs who have fooled themselves on that one, and he's specifically talking about Bitcoin. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty funny. He's been wrong. I mean, that we can bring up the receipts, right? He's talked about Bitcoin in 2018. He said that he would short it if he could have. That it's a greater fool theory. He doesn't understand the use case of store of value. Bitcoin was at $9,200 when he said that. So
Wow.
it's what, more than 10x since then. He's he, he actually doesn't have a good track record in retaining his wealth even. I know he's incredibly rich, and, who am I to say that, but he diversified out of Microsoft, shares, and has since seen his wealth just kind of stay pretty stagnant. So yeah, again, if you look at his track record, he does not have a great track record of knowing what a good investment is, which is crazy to say of somebody with what, 150 billion dollars, but it's true.
It's interesting to me, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think on this. But is he serious, or is this like a is this a ploy to like try to convince the average person that this is a bad idea? Like, do we think that Bill Gates actually owns Bitcoin, just that isn't really associated with him, or is this guy legitimate?
Well,
So
what would be his reasoning against it, right? Like, why would he think that it's a bad thing? That's a kind of a good question too. Yeah.
I think he likes the current system, right? He's made a lot of money in the current system. He's built his company with borrowed money. You can't really create Bitcoin out of thin air. You can't create Bitcoin out of nothing. On the other hand, you can create dollars out of nothing. So he's been able to, the way that I see it, he's been able to get instant gratification and delayed gratification at the same time. So what he's doing is he's able to own these shares of his company. Um, he's able to own a house, and instead of having to sell those things, he can just borrow against them, and he can buy whatever he wants to. I know at the point that he's in at right now, it doesn't really make a difference, but I feel like he's built that wealth that way, and he doesn't. I don't think he wants to leave that system.
Yeah, he has no reason to leave it, right? He's
Yeah.
benefited from it, as you said. I think his remark about people with high IQs have been fooled by this is kind of telling to me. Like, I really wonder if he understands Bitcoin. Like,
Mm.
maybe he hasn't even looked at it. Like, he just thinks that it's some speculative, like, digital thing that doesn't have any real world value, or like, I really question if he has actually looked at what Bitcoin is. As I
Yeah.
don't think he has.
And it's pretty telling, I think, even with what's happened with Microsoft recently with Saylor getting in, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes here. But yeah, it just blows my mind how like one of the most trailblazing technology companies, top 7 in the world for the last couple decades, is failing to miss the biggest technological advancement in human history, which is Bitcoin. It's mind blowing to me. But
Yeah.
I think I agree with what you guys are saying here. Like, he doesn't need Bitcoin. He's got $150 billion already. No matter what happens to the dollar, I think that he's going to be okay. But also, if you look at Microsoft's track record and kind of how they've made their money and their billions, they basically created this software. They kind of forced everybody to use it on the Windows operating system. So now you have pretty much every office on the planet having to use Microsoft. It's completely backwards of like what the Bitcoin ecosystem is. They basically made this closed source operating system
Yeah.
that force people to renew every year. So they have this consistent stream of money coming in. Whereas Bitcoin, everybody kind of pushes for open source, for more sovereignty, for, along those lines where everybody benefits instead of just one single person like Microsoft would.
I
Yeah.
think one of the crazy things with that is that even the product that they're selling, it has competition, right? Let's say, for example, they have Google, they have Microsoft Excel, they have Microsoft Word, but then you have Google Docs, you have Google Sheets, you have whatever their PowerPoint version is. And if we look at it, I don't really think even all that matters. If we look at their stock price in terms of Bitcoin, it's just crashed. At one point, it was One share was 11 Bitcoin at one point. Today it's at 0.004
Wow.
Bitcoin.
It's insane.
Right. So it
Yeah,
doesn't even matter. Like it doesn't matter if he understands it, if it doesn't matter if he owns it. His wealth is being devalued whether he likes it or not. If he doesn't own Bitcoin.
that is true. And yeah, Microsoft, again, to a point that Jor had, they've missed a lot of different waves. They missed the mobile wave, which was revolutionary in changing. And they again, yeah, they just force people into using their products with Microsoft, like their business suite and everything. It's like once you're in there as a business, it's very hard to break out of. It's
Yes.
very hard to even switch to the Google competitor. You get locked in basically. So that's their strategy. I mean, Apple's the same in that way. I just see that like Bitcoin. The only way to compete with Bitcoin, in a sense, is to like launch some like altcoin, some ICO thing, and it's too much of a reputation risk for Microsoft to do that. I'm not saying even any of those altcoins do compete with Bitcoin. I'm saying that's the only way they could try to.
Yeah.
And so Bitcoin, like you said, Rajat, open source. The only way to benefit from it is to adopt it. You can't compete against it. And these businesses, they have to pretend to be competitive in this market to gain people into like to get more shareholders. That's the whole their whole name of the game. So Bitcoin to them, it's something that destroys that whole concept of Microsoft. Like people treat Microsoft as a store of value, which
Yeah.
is exactly what Bitcoin is in this current day. It's a store of value. So they're directly competing against each other. So to say something good about it would take away potentially from people holding Microsoft shares.
Yes, that's very true. I never even thought about that. Rajat, while we're continuing to talk here, do you mind bringing up like the PE ratio? I know that we didn't really plan to talk about the
Go
PE
for.
ratio
Yeah, of
for
course.
Microsoft, because I just think that between Microsoft, between Apple, between some of these big companies who have been around for a very long time, and everybody's been kind of forced to hold on to just by being in these different indexes. Um, I mean, who do you guys think is going to be the first one to adopt Bitcoin from like the Magnificent Seven? I know Tesla already has Bitcoin; they've done pretty well on their investment, which we did a video about last week. But who do we think is going to be next? Like Microsoft turned them down. Apple, we've seen Tim Cook say that he owns Bitcoin, but Apple doesn't hold any. It's a bigger risk for some of these companies, but I foresee if they continue down this road of like this closed source, forcing people to use it, locking people in. I don't know how long that's going to be sustainable in the current world that we're kind of moving into here in terms of like the open source stuff and it being available for pretty much free now for in a lot of ways.
Meta's the
Yeah.
only other one that could adopt it. Because of the structure of the shareholder votes. So Zuckerberg has the majority of the voting power. So and he's a Bitcoiner, right? If Rajat, if you go to that the list of Bitcoiners billionaires holding Bitcoin, Zuck is up there.
Oh yeah, he's
He
at the top.
understands Bitcoin. He understands Bitcoin to some degree. Everybody on that list understands Bitcoin to some degree. And what Zuckerberg's second, right? So and that's in net worth, not in how much Bitcoin they
Right.
hold. So that just means he's the second richest person to hold Bitcoin. So there's a potential in there, but in my opinion, the Meg 7 will become the Meg 8, and probably MicroStrategy will be the one holding the Bitcoin up in that space. I still see it fairly unlikely that even Meta will buy Bitcoin, personally.
Yeah. I
Well,
don't really think it matters whether or not Microsoft or Bill Gates like Bitcoin. Even if there's the way that I see it, even if there's no new adoption, the price is going to go up.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because the people who own it right now, they know what they own and they want to continue switching their dollars for Bitcoin. It's just that it's going to get to that end goal a lot slower, and that's perfectly fine. I think that Bitcoiners are seasoned investors, and they know that you have to delay gratification. You just can't. You're not going to get instant gratification for nothing. So
Yeah. Think about all the people that are Bitcoiners like us, that every time we earn money, a portion of that, a large portion of that that swaps into Bitcoin. It's like it's not a stagnant thing of, okay, once you're a Bitcoiner, you hold a certain amount. It's continuing to grow. the amount of sats that we all stack as Bitcoiners. So
Yeah.
money is going in there. It all adds up. Every single dollar that goes into Bitcoin increases the market cap.
And it's finite too. So it's not like anybody can create more of it and devalue ours. Once you have like one sat, that's like a finite piece of the pie that you can take custody of forever with zero leaks in it. That's a pretty incredible thing. And I think
Yeah.
it is one of those things where you're right. Like that's what I tell people. It's like never have like you can have goals and stuff, but like once you get to half a Bitcoin or one Bitcoin, it's not like you're just going to say, okay, well, that's good enough. I'm going to just go back to earning fiat and storing my wealth in there. It's going to be a gradual evolving thing here. And I think that the other part of that too is like with the Bitcoin stuff and with people who are always, converting their fiat to Bitcoin, it's something that once you get to a certain point within Bitcoin, your conviction level, you're never going back to that old system. So each new person that comes into the network here, they're not leaving. They're not just hanging out here for a while. They're going deeper down this thing and they're going to get more Bitcoin. And they're never going back to that fiat system, the Microsofts and the closed source stuff. It's a one-way street.
Yeah, once
Absolutely.
these people figure it out, it's over. They're not gonna go back. I actually think that there could be more of more of a reason for Microsoft or for Bill Gates to not want Bitcoin, as in, um, maybe he doesn't want other people to figure it out. Because if he says, let's say, oh, Bitcoin has use cases, Bitcoin is very valuable, what's going to happen? People are going to start accumulating Bitcoin. They're no longer going to want to buy Microsoft
Yep.
stock because Bitcoin is massively outperforming Microsoft. I think it's all a game, to be honest. I feel like
Yeah.
he's too smart to not get it.
I
I feel like
agree.
we were talking more about him not getting it. I think he gets it. I think he's just lying to people. I think that's straight up what it is.
Yeah, it's either ignorance or intentional, and I think you're probably right. I think it is intentional. I think there's a lot of media we see actually that purposely tries to push down the price of something like Bitcoin because they're either trying to accumulate it themselves or they have people that are connected to them that want to accumulate it, or they genuinely understand that it is a risk to the fiat system in a many ways and they don't want that to happen and they can't stop it, so this is their attempt to try to at
Yeah.
least slow it down, right?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Forrest, a little bit earlier, and I didn't really put the two and two together here because when we compare Bitcoin to like a Microsoft share, of course they're different. One's traded on a publicly listed exchange. One closes down 9 to 5, no weekends. One, has a CEO. One has products. Bitcoin doesn't. Bitcoin has none of that. So they're not equal in that sense, but they are equal in the sense that they're both stores of value for people because the reason why people own Microsoft, and that's why I wanted Rajat to show the PE ratio because it's so out of whack right now when you compare it to Bitcoin. And so I think that there are a lot of people out there who are holding Microsoft shares as like a store of value because it's one of the only thing historically that has outperformed the money printer, outperformed inflation.
Mhm.
So
Something you
yes.
said,
So
George,
sorry,
something
go
you said
ahead.
in one of our sorry, something you said in one of our previous videos, you said Bitcoin has a PE of 2.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
It's actually 1.6 or something, rounded up
Yeah.
to 2.
Oh, because
Well,
of the why is it 1.6? Is it because the return
Because of
is
the
like 70,
compound
80%?
annual it's the compound annual growth rate.
Right.
It becomes the PE because it
Yeah.
doesn't have a price to earnings because it doesn't have earnings, but you can
Mhm.
you can supplement in the percentage gain of the asset itself.
Yeah. So what
right.
would
So
gold's PE be? Like 15?
It's
what
a
what
good
would be the
question.
average return on Bitcoin or on gold for a year? Probably, I don't know, 5%, maybe 10%. Like it would be pretty long too. I feel
I
like the
was thinking
PE
7,
ratio
8.
for gold would be pretty high.
It depends on the
Oh,
like if you average it out, right, of 10 years or something. Yeah, you can maybe get a better grasp of that. But yeah, you'd have to average it out for 10 years because that's what George is saying as well is like, the compound annual growth rate is like above 50 for the
yeah.
past 10 years of Bitcoin. So if you did that to gold again, it would be, yeah, I don't know. We'd have to do that calculation, but yeah, 7%. I that would be my guess,
Probably
probably
like
something like
15.
that.
Is that
Maybe.
my is that Microsoft's stock price right there?
Yeah, it is.
What's going on? What
They
They're
might have
how
down
just had
big.
earnings.
oh,
I don't
that's a
know.
one day.
Actually,
I gotcha.
even this, like this seems like they're down big, but it's nothing. right? Like if you zoom out, in terms of fiat, the stock is going to go up forever. It doesn't even really matter the day to day moves.
Right.
It's like Bitcoin. In terms of fiat, this thing is always going to go up. It's up 408,000%. In the day to day movement, it's down 1.7,
Well,
whatever.
Microsoft is always at the top of the Mag 7. It's
Yeah.
1, 2, or 3 at all times for a long time, and, they have they have a good business as far as business fiat business goes. They have, software as a service, has good margins. They lock people into these suites and all this, and yeah, it's, I mean, it's better than holding fiat, that's for damn sure, but it is a
Yeah.
product of fiat.
Do you guys think that Warren Buffett's, or sorry, not Warren Buffett, Bill Gates is going to continue saying what he says when Bitcoin is above Microsoft in its market cap?
He's gonna
Probably.
be he's gonna be eating some crow there for sure. But I looked at the return of gold. So over the last 20 years, from 2000 to 2023, gold's compound annual gold growth rate is 9%. So if you
9%.
if you think about 9%, that basically means that a PE ratio would be about 10, I believe, for gold. Because you
10.
have to look at how long it's going to take to repay 100% of your initial investment. That's why Bitcoin's like 2. Because if you bought Bitcoin, you should expect to 100% return over 1.6 years, which is incredible. It's like
It's
again,
insane.
it's not a PE ratio like direct comparison, but that's like the closest thing we have. And
Yeah.
gold would be 10. And I think Microsoft would be what? Did you find it
It
there?
was
Yeah,
It was
32.
like 32.
32. So it would take 32 years for somebody. If you bought that just goes to show how overvalued this stock is. That's essentially what it's saying. It's saying that if you bought one share in Microsoft, I keep wanting to say MicroStrategy. I'm too used to talking about that. If you bought
That's
one share,
strategy now.
is right, just strategy. That's going to make it easier. But if you bought one share in Microsoft, it would take 32 years to get your full investment back,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah, you don't wanna look
This
up Nvidia. It's
this is
it's even
insane.
crazier.
Tesla,
Tesla, yeah.
179.
What?
Yeah.
179.
Well, think
Because
about
they're
their earnings. Their earnings last quarter was
True.
1.6 billion. That's like nothing. They
yeah.
it's Tesla is totally all about speculation of the idea, and I'm not saying that this won't happen, but the idea of robo taxis, the idea of Optimus, the idea of electric cars and them being able to sell full self-driving software and have huge margins on that to all of the electric car makers, not just have that in Tesla itself.
Yeah.
There's all of this stuff that hasn't happened. Will it happen? It's up in the air. I mean, that's for Tesla investors to decide. I personally don't hold any, but that's why they have such a crazy PE ratio.
Nvidia,
Yeah, that's insane.
50.6.
What's Nvidia's?
50.
50.6.
50, yeah.
Ah, that's actually lower than I thought it would be compared to Tesla. Tesla's that's crazy.
So
Amazon's at 50.
if we think about why these are so high, like it's kind of all based on expectations then, right? That's kind of the idea there.
Yeah.
So people are willing to pay 36 times their earnings, or in Tesla's case, 175 times their annual earnings, just because they have such high expectations for it, which, as Forrest said, it might come true, but it also might not. So when we're talking about stores of value and places to like retain your time and energy and wealth, like nothing even compares to Bitcoin right now. So that's why it's so mind blowing to me that these very intelligent people are having such a hard time grasping that. Or, like we alluded to, maybe it's just to kind of, distract people. And I think that a perfect example of that was the earnings call from Strategy the other day, where they basically announced during that report, or their earnings report, that the next quarter they would be reporting a $12.7 billion gain. That's
Wow.
what I took away from it. That's what anybody who was paying attention took away from it. But then you
Yeah.
look at like a mainstream media article and it's like, oh, Microsoft had another quarterly loss. Is
Strategy.
the Bitcoin strategy working? Did I say Microsoft again?
Yeah.
Yeah, you said Microsoft. I actually thought you were talking about Microsoft too. Well,
Micro,
actually, okay.
yeah, MicroStrategy. Sorry, that's what I was talking about there. But yeah, mainstream media basically came out and like tried to demonstrate that they had this loss. So nobody look at MicroStrategy here.
Yeah.
They're losing money. Meanwhile, if you actually watched it, there's going to be a $12.7 billion gain reported on their next earnings report.
Yeah.
That actually, I think that takes us full circle back to the article
Well, the
people
thing for
saying
me,
that he's saying that Bitcoin has no use case. What is the use case of Tesla? If I hold Tesla shares, what am I getting out of it? Nothing. I mean,
voting
it's
rights.
it's all speculation. Even the voting rights can be taken away at some point,
Yeah.
right? There's no guarantee. So,
The other thing here, he says people with high IQs have been fooled. To me, this all comes down to, would I bet against Bill Gates or would I bet against those 40 billionaires that have Bitcoin?
mhm.
Who do I think is right there? Bill Gates diversified out of Microsoft. He would easily be the richest person in the world if he hadn't diversified out of Microsoft, if he hadn't believed in the company that he helped build. I'm betting against Bill every time
Yeah,
compared to these.
Me too.
yeah.
I'm betting against Bill. Where's let's maybe round this out with our favorite tweet there from Matthew Cratter for the people who stuck around this long in the video here.
This is hilarious.
Says I can't understand why Bill Gates doesn't like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still under 18, and you can take it to a remote island and do anything you want with it. I loved it.
It brings a whole new meaning to playing with your Bitcoin.
I thought that was great. That's crazy.
Oh, so
And
bad, but still funny. That's
it
savage.
went
Matthew Cratter.
viral. Well deserved.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
hats off to Matthew Cratter. Thanks. So yeah, I guess this has been another one of our discussions. We're going to be, this might be the first ever video posted on the channel, but maybe not. But this is a new channel. It's called Maple Bitcoin. It's for three guys from Canada here. We're going to be having some discussions on Bitcoin. We're going to be doing some educating on Bitcoin. And we hope you enjoyed the video. You stick around. And if you've, consider at least subscribing to the channel and helping us get some early traction here. So thanks, fellas.